Chad Hasty Show, News Talk KFYO. Thank you very much for tuning in today. Joining us on the phones right now, Republican strategist Matt Mackowiak. Matt, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Chad. I'm doing great. How you doing?
Doing great. Appreciate you joining us today. Let's take a look at some national news. Of course, a lot of the focus is this immigration deal and the caravans that are storming the border down on the U.S.-Mexico border. Politically, though, while it was sort of I guess you could call it a quiet Thanksgiving. For Trump, it's a quiet Thanksgiving, I guess. But it's starting to pick up now, and there was a piece in The Hill that talked about how the White House believes it's going to be Democrats who are going to have to learn to work with Donald Trump. I don't see that working out the way the White House wants it to. How is this? I know we've talked about it before, that maybe infrastructure is something that these two sides can agree on. Is it, who's going to have to work with who on this deal?
Yeah, look, I mean, when you have divided government, there is a necessity for all the parties to work together, particularly when you have must-pass legislation. Now, there's always some of that in every Congress. The obvious area is just the budget, passing the budget, but passing really the spending bills and keeping government open. We're going to see probably this week, really, maybe into early next week, exactly what happens on this border wall funding that Trump has been demanding, and what the Democrats are going to require on there as well to try to get their votes, if their votes are going to be needed. But once we get past that, we probably won't have a lot of those kind of battles until, I imagine, until probably September of next year. Outside of that, as I said, I think on your air a week ago, I do think there's an opportunity on infrastructure and on drug pricing, probably for the parties to come together and do something important. But it appears the Democrats don't really want to work with the president in areas where they agree. You've seen almost no focus on that. What you have seen is their focus on using subpoena power to investigate him and his administration and even his family. There was a story over the weekend, I forget where it was, might have been the New York Times, about how the family is increasingly in the crosshairs. So, look, the Democrats didn't run and win the Congress promising to work with Trump. They promised to fight him, to basically to impeach him, but certainly to investigate him. That's what they promised to do, and that's what I guess they're going to make their priority in the short term. I do think there will be opportunities to work together next year, but boy, it's going to be a poisonous atmosphere in the first 3 to 6 months. Yeah.
Well, and I think by targeting Trump's family, that's to get Trump off his game, right?
Yeah, I don't know what the long-term goal is. Except that I think they want to try to find something they can credibly bring articles of impeachment before Congress over. I just think that they despise him personally and they want to go after him personally. I don't know why you'd want to go after Ivanka or Jared. I mean, they're going to go after Jared on some of the Saudi Arabia stuff and some real estate stuff. So, look, they want to use subpoena power not to do 2 or 3 really important things, but to do 15 to 20 things, and that tells you that they're going to go overboard, I think. And look, investigations don't make people's lives better, and this is one of the areas I think that presents some risk for the Democrats. If they're using all their time and all their energy investigating Trump, that may make them feel good. It may make their base feel good, but it's not going to make average people's lives better at a time when the economy is improving, and there's a lot of other things that the Congress needs to be doing. So I think the Democrats are going to face some challenges. These investigations are going to be interesting for the first few months, but they're going to eventually kind of run their course. And the question is, are you doing anything that makes people's lives better?
Let's see. Over the weekend, you had John Kasich, who told, I guess it was ABC, that he is strongly considering running for president, if only to send a message. Is there any why would other than sending a message that he just doesn't like Trump? What would be the point of Kasich or a Jeff Flake or one of these other guys who just don't like Donald Trump? What would be the point of them running?
Yeah, I'm kind of at the point where I want to strongly consider ignoring anything John Kasich says or does. He's not going governor. There's a political reality to the Trump presidency and where the Republican Party is, and that is that he remains highly popular among Republican voters, with 85 to 95% support. There's no path for anyone who wants to challenge him in a primary. Now, could something change in the next 6, 9, 12 months that fundamentally alters that? I guess it's possible. Seems highly unlikely. So what Kasich's talking about is not running a Republican primary challenge to Trump. He's using that to sort of satiate the interest of the national media. But really the path that he may be looking at would be a third-party bid. Whether he could do that in a bipartisan way, he's, I think, had some conversations with the governor of Colorado, John Hickenlooper, who's a Democrat. So, look, there are going to be a lot of people talking about a lot of possibilities. I don't believe that a third-party independent bid it would be a real threat this time. The kind of people who I think could do that are making clear efforts to run as Democrats, with Mike Bloomberg moving in that direction, Howard Schultz, the recently departed CEO of Starbucks, and others. So, listen, I'm not one of these people who thinks everything Trump says and does is correct because he's the one that said it or did it. I do think we need to evaluate what he says and what he's doing based on conservative principles. But there is no path for anyone to primary Trump right now, and I don't think there will be in the next 2 years. And so, people that talk about that need to have their head examined.
Yeah, you sent out in today's email list. You sent out a story about. Was it Andrew White? Yeah, Andrew White, who took kind of a slap at Beto O'Rourke. It was interesting, but it's something that we had talked about, I think, previously, that Beto O'Rourke was indeed just too liberal for Texas.
Yeah, and Andrew White, many of your listeners may not recall who he was. He made kind of a quixotic bid for governor as a Democrat. Father was former governor, recently departed Governor Mark White. And he actually came pretty close to winning the Democratic nomination for governor. Lupe Valdez ultimately narrowly defeated him. But yeah, he has been more of a mainstream moderate Democrat, and honestly, there doesn't appear to be much of an audience for that kind of Democrat in today's Democratic Party. He felt the need to spike the football a little bit on Beto, even though I think the general takeaway about Beto is that he overperformed. And while he didn't get elected, he elected a lot of Democrats because of straight ticket voting in a lot of places, particularly in urban areas, but also in some suburban areas. But to your point, you're right. I mean, and I think Andrew White is correct as well. I mean, the views that Beto has on issues are not shared by a majority of Texans. I mean, he got as close as he did because he had enormous, unprecedented level of resources. And he kind of made the race about personality and sort of flowery language. It was kind of Obama-like in that way. It wasn't about policy. It was really not about that. And had it been about policy, he wouldn't have done as well as he did. And I think that's part of what Andrew White's talking about in the Houston Chronicle op-ed.
If you're Beto O'Rourke and you want to run for president in 2020, when do you think he makes that decision? Does he have to capitalize off of the name ID that he has already built, or can he wait a while?
Good question. Look, I think he's in a position where he's going to have a difficult time resisting running. These sort of national moments, they come once, if they come at all, and they don't come twice. I'm not saying he should be president. I don't think he's qualified to be president as a former 3-term member of Congress, and that's and city council member. That's not, in my mind, a qualification to be president of the United States. But I actually think because, this moment is currently going and he's getting a lot of attention and a lot of encouragement, he probably has to strike sooner rather than later. And I imagine that's probably fairly unappealing, having just spent two years running for U.S. Senate, having traveled all 254 counties, spent a lot of time away from home. I'm sure he's got a lot of other things he wants to be doing. He probably wants to take some time off. But I imagine that the decision for him and for a lot of these folks probably needs to be made by the end of the year. If there really are going to be 20 or 25 Democrats running, you don't want to be the 23rd person to announce. You want to be in the first 6 or 7, I imagine, to try and get attention. And there is a race already for high-level operatives and top staff, particularly in the early states, among the people who basically are running. So, yeah, there's going to be a lot of decision-making over the next month. I think you'll see that with Julian Castro, the former mayor of San Antonio, as well as a lot of other Democrats. But, yeah, Beto, I think, he's got a little more urgency, I think, than a lot of these folks do, because I think if he's going to do this, he's going to need to sort of really maintain the momentum that he's had. And that momentum will dissipate over time because he won't be in Congress anymore. He won't be a newsmaker anymore. He'll be a former elected official, and I think that in and of itself is going to be a problem for him going forward.
Well, I think it's a great point that you bring up, that you look at Julian Castro, who may run for president this time. There's no buzz about him. There was buzz about him a couple of years ago, but there's no buzz about him right now. On the Republican side, you look at Chris Christie. Chris Christie probably could have won the nomination if he had run for president in 2012, but he didn't do so. He ran in 2016 and got decimated. So I think you're right. There's a moment, and when that moment's there, you better seize it because it doesn't come around again.
Yeah, that's right. And I don't know what Julian's thinking. I guess he's thinking, well, look, I'm the only Latino, that's really out there who has a chance to run, and he probably feels like, look, I was mayor of a large city, I was in the cabinet. I think from his perspective, he probably thinks he has the credentials. I think he's going to be second tier, probably third tier type candidate, hoping maybe at best to be an outside shot to be the vice presidential candidate if they think that a Latino candidate is what the nominee will need. But you're right. It's all about timing. It's all about timing, and when you I always tell candidates sometimes choosing not to run is the most important decision you can make. You don't want to, waste all your chits, all your favors, all your energy on a race that you can't win. Doesn't always work that way for president, though. It's different. You can run for president and still succeed. You can be better off than you were before you ran. But Beto's got a really unique decision ahead of him. I mean, there's going to be a lot of pressure in Texas for him to stay here and run for U.S. Senate against Senator Cornyn on the belief that maybe he could win or that he can help more Democrats get elected, and it's going to lead to redistricting benefit. I mean, he's going to have a lot of pressure there, but I just think it's going to be irresistible for him. It's clear that he likes the crowds. It's clear that he's a bit of a narcissist. He wants the attention, and I think he's clearly recognizing in the last few weeks that there's national interest here and that he is the fresh face that a lot of Democrats really want.
Matt, tell folks how they can sign up for your newsletter and also your latest interview in your podcast.
Yeah, so as your listeners know, we do a newsletter every weekday morning for Texas. Over 3,000 people subscribe. It's called Must Read Texas. We take all the news from around the state, put in one easy-to-read email delivered usually around 9 a.m. each weekday morning. You can sign up for a free one-week trial at mustreadtexas.com. The podcast is called Mac on Politics. We take newsmakers from all over and have conversations with them on a weekly basis. The most recent episode is with a guy who started an amazing nonprofit called Operation Turkey, and they delivered warm meals on Thanksgiving Day in 7 states to 15% of the national homeless population.
Wow. Incredible
effort. So you can find that in iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and on the web at maconpoliticspodcast.com.
Very good, Matt. Thank you very much.
Have a good week. Good luck with the coaching search.
Thank you. That's going to be fun. Thanks, Matt.
Take care. See you.